Hello everybody, my name is mehappydude and welcome to Cosmoteer. Now, I've been playing this game for quite a little while. I just recently started recording and uploading those playthroughs to the channel, but I've been playing Cosmoteer for a while now, and something that I've always been interested in are these moving walkway tiles that you can place in Cosmoteer that allow you to transfer your crew members from one area to another area very quickly, and I was just interested on how they worked, on the dynamics of how they worked, and how crew members would react if certain tiles were placed certain ways. I didn't usually find myself using the walkways because I was unsure of what pathways the AI would script each individual person to take, and I didn't want to place any pathways that the crew members would walk against, and so I spent a day experimenting, and I thought I would just share my my findings with all of you guys so that you could all learn a little bit more about how the pathways work and how these walkways affect things. So this was my first initial experiment. It was just to see how, if I put two walkways that were both going different directions, if the crew could tell how to take the path that leads there and the path that takes away. And as you can see, without me doing anything, they automatically take the path that leads to the reactor core, and then they take the path that leads away from the reactor core towards the shield generator that they're depositing the energy to. So just very simple, very basic, but if a crew member is trying to go somewhere and it has a moving walkway that's pointed towards the direction that they want to go, they will usually take it to speed up, and then they will also correctly identify and take the one on the way back. So you don't have to worry about necessarily them choosing the wrong pathways if you put them close together. They're pretty smart, actually, through all the testing that I've done. This is another one that looked at if they would rather choose to use a slightly longer moving pathway that they were still connected to, that was the same length as a non-moving pathway. And from what it looks like, if the crew has an option between a faster moving pathway that they just have to take a small diversion for, or the standard corridors that they just walk up and down, they usually like to take the corridors. And sometimes this can make it go faster, but sometimes, in the case right here, it's making them take a little bit longer, because they could just pop up here, go all the way down to the bottom, and then go to the reactor core. Now, something to note is that if you had this problem, something that could be done to fix it is if you go into the actual place where you get the moving walkways, all you really have to do is remove this gap here, and then they should begin taking them down and up. Put one right there. So if we empty all the empty spaces out and we fill in all of the gaps with moving walkways, so now this is just one huge corridor, I believe that they'll take the moving walkways down and back. Okay, we just made it so. And no, it appears that I was completely wrong. So that was very silly of me, but so it looks like even in an open area, and this is one that I was still messing around with a little bit. I wanted to make this video a little bit sooner, and so I started it, but it appears that even in an open room, they tend to go where there aren't moving walkways. So if you really need them to use the moving walkways, what you can do is destroy the non-moving walkways, and as long as you have two valid paths, well, that was that was a terrible mistake. As long as you have two valid paths, they should find and go towards the correct ones. So as soon as the non-moving walkways are gone, they instantly know where to go. It's just if there's too many access routes, they can get confused. So that is something to note. If you need a very specific group of crew members to go to a specific place, it doesn't matter the distance. Too many access points will leave them confused. So that's a good thing to keep in mind when you're building your walkways and you're building your paths. So with this, you can see they're going very quickly. When they're going down the moving walkways, it's increasing their speed by a lot. But as soon as they have this additional access path right here, then instead of going down the moving walkways, they will tend just to I also need to build a door so that they can actually get out. That is actually another another way that you can use to influence them. If they don't have this door here, then they'll go out at this point, and because from here forward, it would be faster to take a moving walkway, then they will jump on those moving walkways. And so door positioning actually makes a huge deal. When you're setting up a ship, make sure that you have the doors positioned where you want the crew members to have access or not to have access to, and it changes the dynamic of the crew inside of the ship so much. So I've just replaced the doors now, and now that all the doors are open, they actually, sometimes they seem to take paths that have been taken before just because it's familiar to them. Like we'll see when it needs another one. Yeah, so once a crew member initiates down a path and they find it faster than an older path, they tend to stick to it. It's really, I'm still kind of figuring out the actual path making, but it seems to, an old path is preferred to a new path, but a faster path is usually preferred to a slower path. One thing that I will say is they tend to avoid walking backwards down the moving walkways at all costs, so they'll never move against them unless they absolutely have to, which is an experiment that I've done in another place. Okay, so you saw there, they had this long kind of awkward moving pathway, moving walkway. They would have taken them to the exit pretty quickly, but not as quickly as moving through this large open room. And I just wanted to see if they preferred a shorter distance with the moving walkways, a longer distance with the moving walkways, or a shorter distance with just open corridors. And it seems to be that they just continuously take the preferred shortest distance. Usually, shortest distance, not necessarily the fastest distance, but that rule does have exceptions. So you see up here, this is another thing that I wanted to see. So this pathway is around 12 blocks long. And the long one that I made is around 36 blocks long. So it's roughly, this long one is actually roughly 3 times or 2.5 times the size of this pathway. And so the goal here was, because the shortest number of blocks would be them walking back against this pathway to get that to that reactor core and then bring it back down here to the shield generator that needs energy. But what they do, and what they do consistently, is walk up and around using the corridor, and they've used it. They do the same thing if you put adjacent rooms. This behavior applies to corridors or other modules that you have linked with doors, but they will walk the long way around a moving pathway if it's going the opposite direction that they need to go. So it's basically any moving pathway that is against the direction that they need to walk is like a huge no-go zone. Like, they will try to avoid walking through this path the opposite direction unless it's the only way that they can get to their goal. So I just wanted to do another test to make sure that they were kind of programmed like that to not walk against the pathways. And so if there's a really far away place and you need some propulsion to and back from it, or you just have a place that maybe the people always tend to go from one area of your ship to another, like maybe this is an ammo room, or maybe this is energy and you need to bring it straight to a shield generator, and they always tend to be going to the reactor room and then straight to one specific location. You can build a pathway only in one direction from one part of your ship to another part and expedite their journey back by 2.5 times as fast. So yeah, that's just another part of the 4 experiments that I'm running with this one. I've got another 2 over here, and then I've got a summary in another second that will kind of illustrate some of the other points that I've made with this. But this is a similar thing. This was the same experiment as before, but I increased the number of tiles that was on this right-hand side. I think this second set of tiles was actually 36, and the middle is 12 again. But the other one I think was 25. So this is exactly the ratio that they will travel of corridor versus walking backwards against the moving pathways. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 blocks right here. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. So we've got 33 to 12. So it's almost 3 times as many corridor panels as moving walkway tiles, and that's usually the ratio. Usually it takes them 3 times as long to walk back against this moving pathway than it does just around in regular tiles. So this is roughly the ratio that the units will respond to when they're trying to pathway through your different ship interiors and things. So just kind of keep that ratio in mind of 1 backwards moving pathway to 3 corridor units when you're constructing the inside of ships. Most of the time, ships are so sprawling on the inside that it won't become an issue, but if you're looking to channel or keep certain groups of people contained using moving pathways, then it's just a good number to memorize. So it's 3 to 1 is the highest ratio, is usually the max ratio or the ideal ratio that the units will take normal corridor spaces to go around the reverse moving pathways. But you can see on the way down, they take them just like they normally would. Okay, onto this kind of weird experiment. This was proving the same thing, except now with a forced reverse moving pathway type situation. So initially, I didn't have these overarching paths at all. This was just me testing another point. You can see that they've got a moving pathway here to get all the way over to this reactor core and then back over. And what they could technically do is hit this reactor core and pick it up, and then go down here and then around this incredibly fast-moving pathway, which would get them there faster, technically, but it's just so many extra steps. I think that they go for simplicity first before anything else. So you can see that they take the correct way for the moving pathway, and instead of walking back against it, and this is using the same ratio, this is 3 to 1, 3 corridors to 1 moving walkway, they decide to go up and around instead of backwards across the moving pathway. So this was just me seeing how far I could kind of push this idea or this concept. And if I disconnected both this block and this one over here, you would see that they would, instead of trying to walk down through this kind of tumultuous area, and the AI pathfinding can get confused with these rooms full of just crazy objects, but that's why I did it, is because I wanted to test its limits and see what it could do. But if I were to remove both of the access points to this pathway, then they would still take the walkway over here and then walk against it, which is one of the very few times that they ever do that. Instead of going down through an area of high complexity, I kind of termed these just because of how many things are going on. They tend to avoid areas of a high complexity, even if they're overall faster than the other access routes, because you've got some of these that you would have to walk against, but the sideways ones, you could just... The AI is very good at riding, so this room only takes about a second to get through, and then a small reverse moving pathway before they are initially just pumped all the way over to the shield generator that they need to go to. But they avoid areas of high complexity, and they really avoid reverse walking through these moving pathways, the moving walkways. So I just thought it was a very visual example of more of the pathfinding for the AI. So they avoid areas of high complexity only slightly more than they do reverse walkways. Oh, you can see this person's actually trying to return to their bedroom now that the shield generator is up and they don't have any more work to do. And now the initial journey, I think, should still be them taking a right here instead of going up, down, getting a power module, and then walking up against that pathway and then to the left, even though it'd roughly be the same speed, if not a little bit faster, because now he's got to take it and then go all the way up, over, and then around and down, whereas if he would have taken it from this second power module over here, reactor core, he could have just taken it, opened that door, gone to the left, and then gone all the way around, and it would have taken him a few seconds as opposed to the big journey that he took. But this whole area, because there's a lot of dynamics to it, there's a lot of different movements to it, they're going to label it as highly complex, even though they took this highly complex room anyway. Anything that takes a lot of calculations is not going to be adhered to. So simplicity is a huge friend when you're dealing with moving walkways. Okay, so I finally wanted to do a demonstration just about the way that you can potentially use moving walkways inside of a ship. So I built this with kind of a circle design. It's, as you can see, when you get onto the moving walkways, there's a very big tendency to go in like a counterclockwise direction on the right-hand side, and then a clockwise direction on the bottom left-hand side. But I took units and areas that I thought worked very well together, and then provided a way for them to get quickly to the next place that needed them there. Like, for example, even though there are moving walkways going to the left here, and they could probably go to the right just as easily, I put them going to the left so that you could take the reactor core crystals and get down to the engines relatively quickly through this main line, but it's a lot of moving walkways, and clearly it's very messy, and you wouldn't really want to have a ship situated like this, but it was more of a proof of concept than anything else. The layout does need some work. This was just kind of the first draft that I made after learning a little bit about pathways, because I wanted to be able to use 100% moving walkways in at least the top half of my ship design. The only parts that doesn't have moving walkways are down here in these corridors, just because they would take so long to come back out of. But we'll go ahead and set up a fight just so that you can see how the crew uses the moving walkways when they are reloading guns and doing things like that. So let's spawn in an enemy ship here. Built-in ships. Cross out the YouTube name. Sort by cost low. Let's just get some small fighters to test fight against. Like a Falcon, maybe a Slicer. Possibly one of these frigates. Yeah, there we go. Pause the game right there. Have it be Barbarian, AI, none. Okay. And then we'll just have them come in from the side here. And we'll focus on the ship. And you'll be able to see how the crew responds to needing different resources and how they move along these moving walkways. So we've got missiles going off right now. You can see the crew responds by attaching to themselves to the nearest moving walkway, going to the correct position. Right now, a lot of them are going after missiles. And so the path of least complexity to go up straight to the missile bay is actually to take them through their rooms right there through the center. So they're going to go up through the middle, jump on those moving walkways, and head over left where they can immediately place them in the rocket launchers. And you can see a few of them in that middle area are taking that middle walking pathway, going right, and then coming up and going into those missile rooms. They have to walk back against one of the moving pathways, but it's very quick, so it doesn't... Their pathfinding still finds the correct walkway to take. To the engines seem like they're doing pretty decently because of the moving walkways that are attached to them. We're using that one power reactor more than anything else. And a big thing right now is ammo. Honestly, we need more beds in this ship to provide for all of the weapons that I've placed on it. But as far as just like a rough first draft, it hasn't done that badly. That's an autosave. But, I mean, it destroyed the first ship that it's been firing on. Now it's taking aim at the rest. I mean, ship design is one thing. But a big thing about this is I wanted to use cannons and missiles just because they require so much coordination and manpower. And I wanted to see if a design like this could actually have the functioning and intended effect of ferrying people to where they needed to be for those ammo components and the power components that are so crucial to keeping the shields up and the resources. And it's still a rough draft. I still need a lot more work on it. There's still a lot of things that could be improved. But it's not bad, considering I had no idea how to use moving walkways just a day ago, and this has been my figuring out of the pathfinding and everything else. But I will say that when they're used correctly, and again, I don't recommend you using them for an entire ship. They're much better utilized as a hyper speedy transport for like an essential area that your crew needs. This design is not going to be ideal, as you can see by one of my rockets exploding. But it is slightly functional, considering we're going up against 3 sizable opponents here. So yeah, moving walkways, very good for specific locations. Kind of messy if you want to do a full ship build of moving walkways. It can get very complex very quickly because of the dynamics of the one-way roads. Another ship design that you can do that I built but then didn't like, and so I took apart just because it was too simple, was kind of a broad ship approach where you make your ship very, very, very long but not really have any depth, and you just carry people back and forth on a set of 2 moving walkways, and so whichever direction they go, they're going to be able to be there fast. But larger ship builds like this, it is kind of a pain, and it's kind of difficult to have so many moving walkways at the same time, just because of how complex the interactions can be. But that's, so far, that's how much I know about the moving walkways, and I hope that was a good tutorial on kind of the ways that the pathfinding works and how to use them and how to integrate them properly in ships without overextending yourself or using too many resources or too much room allotted to them. And I hope you learned something. I hope you go out and build a really cool, like, crazy ship build and have fun in some Cosmoteer. I'm gonna tell this ship to get just super close to them to finish these guys off, but I hope you have fun experimenting with some moving walkways. Maybe even if you don't have like a specific area for them, understanding how they can help and affect your ship design from here on out. But that'll be it for this tutorial for moving walkways today. Thank you guys so much for watching and for joining me on this marvelous learning adventure as we learn about conveyor belts, essentially. This has been Cosmoteer. I've been mehappydude. As always, guys, stay happy.